The alien ship appeared without warning. One moment, the sky over Earth was clear and calm, dotted with stars that had always seemed so distant and unreachable. The next, a massive shadow loomed in orbit, blotting out the constellations. It wasn't just big, it was colossal, larger than any human-made structure ever built. Its surface shimmered with strange patterns, like liquid metal flowing under an invisible current. People all over the world stopped what they were doing to stare at the screens showing live footage of the vessel. Some whispered prayers, others screamed in panic. In New York City, Alex Carter sat hunched over his desk, staring at lines of code on his computer screen. He didn't notice the commotion outside until someone knocked loudly on his office door. "Alex, you need to see this," called Rachel Monroe, her voice sharp with urgency. She didn't wait for him to respond before barging in, clutching her tablet tightly in one hand. On its screen was the image of the alien ship dominating the dark expanse of space above Earth. "What is that?" Alex asked, leaning back in his chair. His eyes widened as he took in the sight. For years, he'd worked as a linguist specializing in decoding messages from potential extraterrestrial sources. But nothing had prepared him for this, not the countless hours spent analyzing static-filled radio waves or deciphering fragments of unknown languages. This was real, too real. "It showed up 20 minutes ago," Rachel said, her tone clipped but tinged with awe. "No warning, no trajectory data, just there." She tapped the screen, zooming in on the ship's intricate surface. "And get this, we're picking up signals. Weak ones, but definitely coming from inside." Alex stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his coffee cup. "Signals? You mean communication?" "Possibly, or maybe distress calls. We can't tell yet." Rachel hesitated, then added, "They've asked us to help decode them. You're being called in." For a brief second, Alex felt a surge of excitement, a chance to finally use his skills for something meaningful. But it quickly faded into unease. If these signals were truly cries for help, what did that mean? Were the aliens injured, dying, lost? And more importantly, could humanity trust them? As they made their way to the UN headquarters, where scientists and government officials were scrambling to respond, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that history itself was shifting beneath their feet. Outside, crowds gathered in the streets, pointing at the sky. Some held signs demanding action, while others prayed openly. Fear hung heavy in the air. Inside the building, chaos reigned. Scientists argued over data, military personnel barked orders, and politicians debated whether to reach out or prepare for war. Alex and Rachel found themselves ushered into a cramped room, filled with monitors displaying various pieces of information about the alien ship. A man in a suit introduced himself as Commander Daniel Hayes and explained the situation. "We've isolated parts of the transmission," Hayes said, gesturing toward a screen. Static crackled as he played the recording. At first, it sounded like random noise, but then came faint tones, almost melodic, and bursts of sound that might have been words. "This could take weeks to decode," Alex murmured, rubbing his temples. "Maybe longer." "We don't have weeks," Hayes snapped. "Whatever's happening up there, it's urgent. These aren't casual transmissions. They're desperate." Rachel stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. "If we assume they're asking for help, we need to consider why. What if they're fleeing something? Or someone?" Her words sent a chill through the room. The idea that the aliens weren't alone, that they might be pursued by enemies, hadn't occurred to many people yet, but once spoken, it lingered, gnawing at everyone's thoughts. As Alex began working on the signals, piecing together patterns and trying to make sense of the alien language, he realized the enormity of the task ahead. This wasn't just about decoding messages anymore. It was about deciding humanity's role in the universe, and whether they would answer the plea for help or turn away. Little did he know, the choice wouldn't rest solely in his hands. After days of debate and planning, humanity decided to act. A small team would be sent aboard the alien ship to investigate further. The mission was risky, but the world couldn't ignore the possibility that the aliens were truly in need of help, or that they might hold answers to the growing threat looming over Earth. Alex Carter, Rachel Monroe, Jason Lee, and Mia Rodriguez were chosen for the task. Each had unique skills that made them essential to the mission, though none felt fully prepared for what lay ahead. The shuttle carrying the team launched from a secure facility in Nevada, its sleek design blending advanced human engineering with experimental technology adapted from previous encounters with alien artifacts. As they ascended into space, Alex stared out the window at the vast emptiness stretching endlessly before them. He tried not to think about the dangers waiting on the other side of their journey. Rachel sat beside him, her fingers tapping nervously against her knee. She had spent years studying distant stars and galaxies, but now she was heading straight into the unknown. Jason, the pilot, remained calm as he guided the shuttle toward the alien vessel. His voice was steady as he spoke into the comm system, updating mission control on their progress. "Approaching target in 3 minutes," he said, his eyes scanning the controls. Behind him, Mia double-checked the medical supplies packed for the mission. Though she rarely showed it, she was scared. But fear wasn't something she let stop her, not when lives depended on her being ready. When the shuttle finally docked with the alien ship, the team suited up in protective gear and stepped cautiously onto the boarding ramp. The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. The walls shimmered faintly, pulsing with light like veins carrying energy through the ship. Everything felt alive, humming softly under their feet. It was beautiful, but also unsettling. "Stay close," Jason whispered, gripping his weapon tightly. No one knew if the aliens posed a threat, but caution was better than regret. As they moved deeper into the ship, the silence grew heavier. There were no signs of activity, no movement, no sound except for the low hum of the ship itself. Then, around a corner, they found them. The survivors. Dozens of alien beings lay sprawled across the floor, their frail bodies wrapped in tattered cloaks. Some stirred weakly, while others didn't move at all. Their features were strange yet oddly familiar, with large, expressive eyes and elongated limbs. They looked exhausted, broken. Alex knelt beside one of the creatures, trying to speak despite knowing they wouldn't understand. "We're here to help," he said softly, hoping his tone conveyed kindness. The alien blinked slowly, its gaze locking onto his face. For a moment, Alex thought he saw gratitude, or maybe just desperation, in those wide eyes. Rachel scanned the area, her scientific curiosity battling her unease. "Look at this place," she murmured, pointing to intricate panels lining the walls. "This tech is far beyond anything we've seen. If we can learn how it works." "Focus, Rachel," Jason interrupted sharply. "We don't know if they're friendly or not." Mia ignored the tension between them, crouching next to another alien. She gently checked its pulse, or what passed for a pulse, and frowned. "They're malnourished," she said. "Dehydrated too. Whoever they are, whatever happened to them, it wasn't good." While the team worked to assess the situation, Alex noticed something carved into one of the panels, a series of symbols etched deeply into the surface. He recognized some of them from the transmissions they'd been decoding back on Earth. This was their language, maybe even part of their story. "They're trying to tell us something," Alex said, excitement creeping into his voice. "These markings, they match fragments of the distress signal." Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. Lights flickered along the walls, casting eerie shadows across the corridor. Back on Earth, alarms blared as sensors detected new activity near the alien ship. Something, or someone, was approaching fast. The team exchanged worried glances. They had come to offer help, but now they weren't sure who needed saving more, the aliens or themselves. Back on Earth, the trembling lights aboard the alien ship triggered a wave of panic. Sensors detected an unknown object moving rapidly toward the vessel, something larger and more menacing than anything humanity had seen before. News of the approaching threat spread quickly, reaching mission control within seconds. The team aboard the alien ship didn't have much time. Inside the alien craft, Alex Carter stared at the symbols carved into the wall, his mind racing as he tried to piece together their meaning. The distress signal had been fragmented, but now, seeing these markings up close, patterns began to emerge. He scribbled notes furiously on a tablet, translating what he could. "They're talking about war," he muttered, his voice low but tense. Their planet was destroyed. They were running from something. Rachel Monroe stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she read over his shoulder. Running from what? And where is it now? Her question hung in the air, unanswered but heavy with dread. Jason Lee glanced at the corridor behind them, his hand tightening around his weapon. "Whatever it is, it's getting closer. We need to figure this out fast." His voice was calm, but his stance betrayed his unease. He trusted his training, but this wasn't a situation anyone could prepare for. Mia Rodriguez knelt beside one of the weakened aliens, trying to offer comfort despite the language barrier. She gently pressed a small device to its arm, administering nutrients and hydration through a portable injector. The alien stirred slightly, its large eyes flickering open. It made a soft sound, almost like a whisper, and Maya froze, unsure if it was trying to communicate or simply reacting to her presence. Alex turned back to the symbols, his fingers tracing the etched lines. "This part here, it mentions another group, a rival faction. They attacked the aliens' home, forced them to flee." But he hesitated, his brow furrowing. "It also says they followed." Rachel's breath caught in her throat. "Followed? You mean they're being chased?" "It looks that way," Alex confirmed grimly. "And if that thing heading toward us is who I think it is." Before he could finish, the entire ship shuddered violently. Lights dimmed and then flared back to life, casting sharp shadows across the room. The hum that had filled the corridors grew louder, almost deafening. The surviving aliens began to stir, their movements frantic. Some tried to crawl away, while others huddled together, as if seeking safety in numbers. "We need to get out of here," Jason said firmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "If those pursuers are coming, we don't want to be caught in the middle." "No," Alex argued, shaking his head. "We can't leave yet. These symbols, they are telling us why they came here, why they pleaded for help. If we abandon them now, we'll never know. And if we stay too long, we might not live to tell anyone." Jason shot back. His tone softened slightly as he added, "Look, I get it. This is important. But staying alive is more important. For all of us." Mia stood up, brushing off her hands. "He's right, Alex. We can't help them, or ourselves, if we're dead. Let's grab what we can and regroup." Reluctantly, Alex nodded. He snapped photos of the symbols and downloaded data from his tablet, hoping it would be enough to continue decoding later. Rachel helped him gather samples of the alien tech, stuffing them into a portable case. Every second felt like an eternity, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. As they prepared to leave, one of the aliens reached out weakly, its thin fingers brushing against Alex's leg. Its eyes locked onto his, filled with a mixture of fear and hope. Alex crouched down, placing a hand gently on its shoulder. "We'll come back," he promised, though he wasn't sure if the alien understood. "We'll find a way to help you." The team moved quickly back toward the shuttle, their footsteps echoing in the now unsettling silence of the alien ship. Behind them, the hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls. When they reached the airlock, Jason turned to seal it shut, but not before glancing back down the corridor. In the distance, shapes began to emerge from the shadows. Large, angular forms that didn't belong to the refugees. "Go!" Jason shouted, slamming the airlock close. As the shuttle detached from the alien vessel and sped back toward Earth, none of them spoke. They had uncovered fragments of the truth, But the cost of that knowledge weighed heavily on their shoulders. Whatever was coming, it was clear humanity wouldn't be ready for it. The shuttle carrying Alex, Rachel, Jason, and Mia re-entered Earth's atmosphere, just as chaos erupted across the planet. News of the approaching alien fleet had spread like wildfire, sparking panic in cities and towns worldwide. People crowded into streets, some shouting angrily, others crying in fear. Governments struggled to maintain order, but mistrust and confusion were spreading faster than anyone could control. Back at Mission Control, the team was rushed into a briefing room where military leaders and politicians waited anxiously for answers. The air was thick with tension as Alex connected his tablet to a large screen, displaying the symbols and data he collected from the alien ship. "These markings tell a story," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "The aliens who came here, they're refugees. Their home was destroyed by another group, a hostile faction that's now following them." Rachel stepped forward, adding her observations. "Their technology is advanced, far beyond ours, but they're weak. Exhausted, they came here hoping for help, not realizing how divided we are." She glanced around the room, her gaze lingering on the stern faces of the military officers. "If we turn them away, or worse, attack them, we'll be no better than the ones who drove them from their planet." General Harold Bennett, a tall man with sharp features and an even sharper tone, leaned forward in his seat. "You're asking us to trust aliens we know nothing about, to risk our safety based on scribbles on a wall." "It's not just scribbles," Alex shot back, frustration creeping into his voice. "It's evidence. Evidence that they're victims, not invaders. And if we don't help them, the enemy fleet will reach us anyway. We can't fight them alone." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just deciding whether to aid the refugees, it was choosing how to face an impending war. Some argued for diplomacy, while others pushed for aggression. The debate grew heated, voices rising until Commander Daniel Hayes slammed his fist on the table. "Enough," he barked. "We don't have time for this. Whatever decision we make, it has to be now." Outside the briefing room, protests raged. Crowds gathered near government buildings, holding signs that read "Protect Earth First" and "No Aliens Allowed." Media outlets broadcast conflicting reports, some calling the refugees saviors, others labeling them threats. Fearmongers dominated social media, spreading rumors that the aliens carried weapons or diseases. Amid the noise, Alex felt a growing sense of guilt. He realized his initial translations might have been too optimistic, fueling false hope among those desperate for reassurance. Jason watched the news coverage with a grim expression. "This isn't going to end well," he muttered to Mia, who sat nearby, quietly tending to minor injuries sustained during the mission. "People are scared. When they're scared, they lash out." Mia nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she bandaged a cut on her arm. "And when they lash out, innocent people get hurt, or worse." As hours passed, the divisions deepened. Nations argued over how to respond, each prioritizing its own interests. Some countries began fortifying borders, while others scrambled to develop new weapons. Back in the briefing room, Rachel tried to mediate, urging everyone to focus on cooperation rather than conflict. "If we work together, if we combine resources and knowledge, we might stand a chance," she pleaded. But her words fell on deaf ears. Alex, meanwhile, pored over the data again, searching for anything he might have missed. He couldn't shake the image of the alien reaching out to him, its eyes filled with desperation. "We're making a mistake," he whispered to himself. "A huge one." By nightfall, the first images of the enemy fleet appeared on radar screens. Massive ships, dark and jagged like shards of broken glass, moved steadily closer to Earth. The sight sent shockwaves through Mission Control, silencing even the most vocal skeptics. For a brief moment, humanity seemed united, not by hope, but by fear. General Bennett broke the silence. "Launch the interceptors," he ordered coldly. "If they want a fight, we'll give them one." Alex stared at him, horrified. "You're starting a war before we even know what's happening." Bennett's reply was blunt. "Sometimes you strike first to survive." As the order was carried out, Alex turned away, his heart heavy. Somewhere above them, the alien refugees clung to life, unaware that humanity's response would seal their fate, and possibly Earth's as well. The first missiles launched from Earth streaked across the sky like streaks of fire, their trails visible even from the ground. People watched in stunned silence as the weapons raced toward the alien fleet, unsure whether to cheer or cry. For a moment, it seemed like humanity had taken control of its destiny, but the enemy ships didn't falter. Instead, they responded with devastating force. When the missiles reached their targets, they exploded harmlessly against invisible shields surrounding the massive vessels. The alien fleet didn't slow down or retreat. It advanced, undeterred. Seconds later, beams of energy shot out from the enemy ships, striking back at Earth's defenses. Satellites were destroyed, communication networks collapsed, and entire military bases were reduced to ash in an instant. Panic spread faster than anyone could react. On the ground, Alex Carter stood frozen in front of a monitor showing live footage of the destruction. His hands trembled as he watched cities crumble under the relentless assault. "This is insane," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the alarms blaring around him. Rachel Monroe placed a hand on his shoulder, but her usual calm demeanor was shattered. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. "They're not even trying to negotiate," she said, her voice shaking. "They're just destroying everything." Jason Lee clenched his fists, frustration boiling inside him. He had seen combat before, but nothing like this. This wasn't war, it was annihilation. "We should have listened," he muttered bitterly. "If we'd worked with the refugees instead of attacking first, maybe we'd have had a chance." Mia Rodriguez sat nearby, her head bowed as she tried to process the horror unfolding around them. She thought about the aliens they'd left behind on the refugee ship, the ones who had begged for help. Had they been telling the truth? Were they truly victims caught between two forces far greater than themselves? If so, humanity had made a grave mistake. Meanwhile, aboard the refugee vessel, the weakened aliens sensed the battle raging outside. Though unable to see it directly, they felt the vibrations and heard the distant hum of destruction. Fear gripped them, and some began to wail softly, their frail bodies trembling. One of the survivors crawled toward a console, its movements slow and labored. With great effort, it activated a holographic display showing the battlefield above Earth. The sight of their pursuers unleashing devastation filled the room with despair. Back on Earth, General Harold Bennett barked orders into a comms system, his voice sharp and unyielding. "Retreat and regroup. Focus all remaining forces on protecting civilian populations." But his commands came too late for many. Cities burned, skies turned black with smoke, and millions fled in terror, unsure where to go or what to do. The world that once debated how to handle the alien refugees now scrambled simply to survive. Amid the chaos, Alex remembered something. One small detail from the symbols he'd translated aboard the refugee ship. "Wait," he shouted, grabbing Rachel's arm. "There's something else. Something I missed earlier." Rachel turned to him, her expression desperate. "What is it?" "The markings. They mentioned a weakness, a flaw in the enemy's technology. It's subtle, but if we can exploit it." Before he could finish, another explosion rocked the facility, throwing everyone off balance. Lights flickered, and debris rained down from the ceiling. When the dust settled, Jason looked up, his jaw tight with determination. "If there's even a chance, we need to take it." Mia nodded, rising to her feet despite her fear. "Then let's move. We don't have much time." Together, the team rushed to gather what little resources remained. They knew the odds were slim. Humanity was outmatched, outnumbered, and running out of options. But as they prepared to act, Alex couldn't help but think of the alien who had reached out to him, its eyes filled with both hope and dread. Whether they succeeded or failed, one thing was certain: humanity would never be the same again. The team worked frantically, piecing together Alex's discovery about the enemy's weakness. It wasn't much, just a fragment of information buried in the alien symbols, but it was their only chance. According to the markings, the enemy ships relied on a central hub to maintain their energy shields. If that hub could be disabled, even briefly, Earth's forces might stand a fighting chance. "We need to get back to the refugee ship," Alex said, his voice urgent as he spread out diagrams and notes on a table. "The aliens there might know more. They've fought these enemies before. They might have insights we don't." Rachel nodded, her mind racing. "But how do we reach them? The sky's a war zone right now. Even if we make it off the ground, those ships will tear us apart." Jason stepped forward, his expression grim but resolute. "I'll fly the shuttle. I can weave through the chaos long enough to get us there. But once we're aboard, we'll need to move fast. Every second counts." Mia adjusted the medical kit slung over her shoulder, her hands trembling slightly. "And what happens if the refugees don't trust us? We left them behind last time. They might not want to help." "They don't have a choice," Jason replied sharply. "Neither do we." As they prepared to leave, General Bennett appeared in the doorway, his face flushed with anger. "What are you doing?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the tension. "You think running back to those aliens is going to save us?" "It's our only shot," Alex answered, meeting the general's glare. "If we don't try this, we lose everything." Bennett hesitated, his jaw tightening. He knew the situation was dire. Earth's defenses were crumbling under the relentless assault. Finally, he let out a frustrated sigh. "Fine. Go. But if this fails, it's on you." With that, the team hurried toward the launch bay. The shuttle roared to life as Jason took the controls, guiding it carefully out of the facility. Above them, the battle raged on. Explosions lit up the sky, and debris from destroyed satellites and ships rained down like fiery hail. Jason's hands moved deftly over the controls, dodging beams of energy and fragments of wreckage. For a moment, it seemed impossible they'd make it, but then they broke through the chaos and approached the refugee vessel. When they docked, the scene inside was grim. The surviving aliens huddled together, their frail bodies shaking with fear. Some stared at the humans with suspicion, while others seemed too weak to react. Alex stepped forward, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "We need your help," he said slowly, hoping his tone would convey sincerity. One of the aliens, taller and stronger than the rest, stepped forward cautiously. Its large eyes locked onto Alex's, searching for truth. Using gestures and broken phrases from the alien language Alex had been studying, he explained their plan. The alien listened intently, its expression shifting from doubt to determination. After a moment, it nodded and led them deeper into the ship, where damaged consoles flickered faintly. Back on Earth, General Bennett watched the live feed of the team's progress. His brow furrowed as he saw soldiers planting explosives near sections of the refugee ship. "What are they doing?" he growled, turning to an aide. "Who authorized this?" Before anyone could answer, the charges detonated. A section of the alien vessel erupted in flames, killing several of the survivors instantly. Horror washed over Alex as he realized what had happened. "No!" he shouted, rushing toward the site of the explosion. The remaining aliens recoiled in terror, their cries echoing through the corridors. Mia knelt beside one of the injured aliens, trying to save it despite the burns covering its body. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered apologies. Jason clenched his fists, fury boiling inside him. This wasn't part of the plan. He spat, glaring at the camera feed linked to mission control. "Who gave the order?" General Bennett stood silent, guilt flashing across his face. He had authorized the strike, believing the refugees might be hiding weapons or technology that could turn the tide of the war. Now, faced with the consequences, he felt the weight of his decision crushing him. Alex turned to the remaining aliens, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry. So sorry." But the damage was done. Trust shattered, lives lost, and time running out. Humanity had betrayed the very beings it sought to save, and the cost of that betrayal would haunt them all. The betrayal cut deep, not just among the aliens but within the human team as well. Alex Carter stood frozen, his heart heavy with guilt and anger. The cries of the surviving aliens echoed in his ears, a reminder of humanity's failure. Rachel Monroe clenched her fists, her usual calm replaced by barely contained rage. How could they do this? She demanded, her voice trembling. "We're supposed to be better than this." Jason Lee didn't say a word. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the wreckage caused by the explosion. He had always believed in following orders, trusting that those in charge knew what they were doing. But now, staring at the devastation, he felt something inside him snap. "This wasn't about saving Earth," he said finally, his tone cold and bitter. "It was about fear. Fear made them monsters." Mia Rodriguez knelt beside one of the injured aliens, her hand shaking as she tried to ease its pain. It was too late. The creature's breathing grew shallow, its large eyes filled with sorrow. As it took its last breath, Mia bowed her head, tears streaming down her face. She whispered softly, "I'm so sorry." The remaining aliens watched her silently, their expressions unreadable but heavy with grief. Amid the chaos, the tall alien who had tried to help them earlier stepped forward. Its movements were slow but deliberate, its gaze locked onto Alex. Though no words passed between them, the message was clear. Time was running out. The enemy fleet was still advancing, and without unity, both humans and aliens would fall. Alex swallowed hard, forcing himself to focus. "We can't undo what's been done," he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "But we can fight back, together. If we combine our knowledge and technology, maybe we can stop them." Rachel nodded, wiping away tears. "We have to try. For everyone who's already lost." The tall alien gestured for them to follow. Leading them deeper into the ship, they entered a chamber filled with glowing panels and strange devices, each pulsing with energy. The alien pointed to one of the consoles, its meaning obvious. This was their chance to strike back. Back on Earth, General Harold Bennett stared at footage of the sabotage, his face pale. The operation had been meant to weaken the enemy, but instead, it had only deepened the divide. Reports poured in of cities burning, civilians fleeing, and military forces crumbling under the relentless assault. Humanity's greatest strength, its ability to unite, had been shattered by fear and mistrust. In the alien chamber, Alex worked quickly, deciphering symbols and inputting commands based on what he'd learned earlier. Rachel assisted, her scientific mind piecing together how the alien tech functioned. Jason kept watch, his weapon ready in case the enemy boarded the ship. Mia tended to the few surviving aliens, offering whatever comfort she could. As they worked, the tall alien approached Alex again, placing a hand on his shoulder. Though no words were spoken, Alex understood. The alien was entrusting him, not just with their lives, but with the future of both species. It was a responsibility he couldn't ignore. Finally, after hours of intense effort, the team completed their plan. By merging human ingenuity with alien technology, they created a device capable of targeting the enemy fleet's central hub, a vulnerability Alex had identified earlier. If successful, it would disable their shields long enough for Earth's remaining forces to strike. "We need someone to deliver it," Jason said, his voice firm. "Someone who can get close enough to plant it." "I'll go," Alex volunteered without hesitation. "I started this. I'll finish it." Rachel grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with worry. "You don't have to do this alone." "Yes, I do," Alex replied, his voice soft but resolute. "If I don't make it back, tell everyone we tried. That's all anyone can ask." With the device secured and the mission set, Alex prepared to leave. The tall alien stepped forward one last time, bowing its head in gratitude. As Alex climbed aboard a small escape pod, he glanced back at the team and the aliens who had trusted him despite everything. Then, with a deep breath, he launched toward the battlefield above. Earth's fate now rested in his hands. The escape pod carrying Alex Carter shot through the chaos of the battlefield like a tiny speck in a storm. Around him, beams of energy crisscrossed the dark void of space, and debris from destroyed ships tumbled past. The enemy fleet loomed ahead, its jagged vessels casting ominous shadows against the burning skies of Earth below. Alex gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white, as he guided the pod toward the largest ship, the one identified as the Central Hub. Back aboard the refugee vessel, Rachel Monroe paced anxiously, her eyes glued to the monitor tracking Alex's progress. Jason Lee stood nearby, his arms crossed but his body tense, ready to act if anything went wrong. Maya Rodriguez sat quietly, her hands clasped together, praying silently for Alex's safety. The surviving aliens watched them, their large eyes reflecting a mix of fear and hope. None of them spoke, but the weight of the moment hung heavy in the air. As Alex approached the enemy ship, he activated the cloaking device built into the pod, a piece of alien technology reverse-engineered by the team. The small craft shimmered briefly before disappearing from sight. It wasn't perfect, but it gave him a slim chance of slipping past the enemy's defenses unnoticed. His heart pounded as he navigated closer, dodging patrols and avoiding detection. Inside the enemy vessel, the atmosphere was cold and mechanical. Strange creatures moved through the corridors, their angular bodies covered in armor that gleamed under dim red lights. They communicated in sharp, guttural sounds, their movements precise and calculated. Alex shuddered at the sight of them, knowing they were the architects of so much destruction. He landed the pod in a secluded section of the ship, stepping out cautiously. The device strapped to his back felt impossibly heavy, both physically and emotionally. He knew what failure meant, not just for him, but for everyone on Earth. Taking a deep breath, he activated the map Rachel had programmed into his wrist console, guiding him toward the Central Hub. The journey through the ship was harrowing. Every corner turned revealed new dangers. Enemy patrols, automated drones, and traps designed to eliminate intruders. Alex relied on quick reflexes and sheer determination to stay alive. At one point, he narrowly avoided being spotted by ducking into a maintenance alcove, his breath shallow as the creatures passed inches away. Another time, he used a makeshift EMP pulse, crafted by Rachel, to disable a drone blocking his path. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Alex reached the Central Hub. It was a massive chamber filled with glowing conduits and pulsating energy cores. In the center stood a towering structure, humming with power. This was it, the heart of the enemy fleet's defenses. If he could plant the device here, it would create a brief window for Earth's forces to strike. Alex worked quickly, attaching the device to the base of the structure. His hands trembled as he set the timer, knowing he wouldn't have long to escape. Just as he finished, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, illuminating the chamber in harsh bursts. The enemy had detected him. Without hesitation, Alex sprinted back the way he came, his mind focused solely on survival. Behind him, the sound of pursuit grew louder, footsteps pounding against metal floors, weapons firing. A blast grazed his shoulder, sending searing pain through his body, but he pushed forward, refusing to give up. When he reached the pod, he dove inside, slamming the hatch shut behind him. The engines roared to life as he launched away from the enemy ship, the device counting down behind him. On the screen, he saw Earth's remaining. The explosion rippled through space like a shockwave, momentarily blinding everyone watching from Earth. The enemy fleet's shields collapsed, leaving their ships vulnerable for the first time. Across the globe, military commanders seized the opportunity, launching coordinated attacks with everything they had left. Fighters darted through the chaos, firing missiles and energy weapons at the exposed alien vessels. Explosions lit up the sky as one enemy ship after another was destroyed. On the ground, Rachel Monroe watched the live feed from Mission Control, her heart racing. "It worked," she whispered, clutching the edge of the table. Tears streamed down her face, not just from relief, but from the sheer weight of what Alex had done. Jason stood beside her, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His expression was grim, though a flicker of hope shone in his eyes. "He's not out of this yet," Jason said quietly, glancing at the radar screen tracking Alex's escape pod. Mia Rodriguez sat nearby, her hands clasped together so tightly her knuckles turned white. She stared at the monitor showing Alex's progress, willing him to make it back safely. The remaining aliens huddled around her, their large eyes fixed on the screens, silently rooting for the man who had risked everything to help them. None of them spoke, but the tension in the room was palpable. Inside the escape pod, Alex fought to stay conscious. The wound on his shoulder throbbed painfully, and blood soaked through his makeshift bandage. His vision blurred as he guided the craft toward Earth, each movement requiring immense effort. The pod shook violently as it passed through the atmosphere, flames licking its surface. For a moment, Alex thought it might burn up entirely. But then the shaking subsided, and the ground came into view below. Back at the refugee vessel, Rachel spotted the pod descending on the radar. "He's almost here," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. Jason sprang into action, grabbing a medkit and rushing to the airlock. Maya followed close behind, her medical instincts kicking in despite her exhaustion. Together, they prepared to retrieve Alex as soon as the pod docked. When the hatch opened, Alex stumbled out, barely able to stand. His face was pale, and sweat dripped from his brow. Jason caught him before he could collapse, easing him gently to the floor. "You did it," Jason said, his voice thick with admiration. "You actually did it." Alex managed a weak smile, his breathing labored. "Did we win?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Rachel knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "We're winning, thanks to you." As Mia tended to Alex's wounds, news poured in from Earth. The combined human forces were pushing back against the enemy fleet, taking advantage of the brief window Alex had created. Ship after ship fell, their jagged forms breaking apart in fiery explosions. The tide of the battle had turned, but the cost had been devastating. Cities lay in ruins, millions were displaced, and countless lives had been lost. Despite the destruction, there were moments of hope. Civilians banded together to rebuild, sharing resources and shelter. Survivors helped one another, proving that even in the darkest times, humanity could still find light. Rachel watched footage of people working side by side, her resolve strengthening. "This isn't over," she said firmly. "Not just the fight, but the healing. We have to do better next time." Meanwhile, aboard the refugee vessel, the surviving aliens gathered around Alex. One of them, the tall leader, placed a hand on his uninjured shoulder, bowing its head in gratitude. Though no words were spoken, the message was clear. Alex had earned their trust, and perhaps their friendship. As the battle raged on above, Alex closed his eyes, finally allowing himself to rest. He didn't know what the future held, for Earth, for the aliens, or for himself. But for the first time in days, he felt a glimmer of hope. They had faced unimaginable odds and survived. Together, they had proven that even in the face of overwhelming fear and loss, courage and unity could prevail. And somewhere, amidst the ashes of war, a new beginning was taking shape. The war ended not with a single decisive moment, but with a series of small victories. The enemy fleet, weakened by the destruction of their central hub, retreated into deep space, leaving behind only silence and wreckage. Earth's skies, once filled with fire and